Zest is in, where resilience begins, not fixing the cracks.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Zest with me, Shel Marie, the podcast that'll take you on a journey from the hustle to the harmony, fueling your passion whilst finding your peace. I am super excited to welcome my guest today, Simon White. He is a founder and CEO of Succeed. He's a keynote speaker and a powerful voice in redefining leadership through connection, confidence, and well-being. Through his grounded real-world approach to leadership and team development, he is helping individuals and organizations move beyond surface-level success into something far more people-focused, grounded and impactful. So in a world maybe where we're often craving authentic leadership, what does it really take to create environments where people truly thrive beyond just the policies and the structures, the actual feeling that people gain? So if you feel called, I invite you to share a little love today by helping my incredible guest voice today, Simon, and by subscribing for future episodes. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it allows this powerful episode and the wisdom shared here today to reach many more hearts and minds. So if you have done so already, thank you so much. And may this episode bring you the clarity, confidence, and a deeper connection to the leader within you. Yes, we are all leaders in our own rights. Welcome, Simon.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And how are you?
So good. The weather makes such a difference, doesn't it? So I'm recording this from home, but I can see the sunshine outside. It makes such a difference.
Absolutely. And I think just in that, I can imagine from the name of your business, Succeed, as you probably, I would love your take on this. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but everything is what we make of it anyway, and everything is how we show up and what we see and what we believe. So yeah, even if it is pouring with rain, I've learned to really embrace it now, because I feel like my well-being and my mind and the way I see the world is actually my responsibility. So I don't know why. Let's start with that. What would you think about that?
Gosh, wow. I think there are so many variables these days, and I think it's a journey. I think you've probably been on a journey to get to that point. And I think what your podcast does, and a lot of what we see on social media now, we see a lot of potentially the end result. And I think, you saying that, a lot of your guests will probably hear that and think, oh, I want to achieve that. I want to get to that point. And I think that's what you and I are looking to do, and what we try and do is to help map out that journey for people, so they can, with confidence, with passion and certainty, say what you've said about themselves.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Simon. And one thing that I really love that you added to that was, we would like to. And I really like that you've really emphasized that, because obviously I've expressed that in the moment today, but equally we're not robots. We have different days, time. Every day is not linear. You have your ups and your downs. So equally, but in those moments, what I've learned is, how can I be kind, compassionate, and loving to myself? Whereas before I would give myself a really hard time. So I really love that you shared that. And so I felt like that was an extra little gem for the guests listening. So thank you. And for the audience listening. So thank you. So with that in mind, because a lot of it is, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our power, the power of our words often, that shape, I believe, the way we see the world. And I know there's so many buzzwords right now, which is beautiful, but sometimes there's so many that seem to get pushed all at the same time. It kind of makes the meaning less meaningful. But I know that something you are really passionate about is authentic leadership. And again, I think that has been sometimes ran with a little bit, but not always implemented in the way that maybe because it's always personal to us, isn't it? But how I believe that the idea of it should be. So I would just love your take on what does that really truly mean to you beyond the buzzword?
I think leadership has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. And, you know, when we talk about leadership, there's also management. And I think people get very caught up in, I want to be a leader. And then you have people who are managers and they try to choose one or the other. But actually, what I've learned in all my experience with the teams I've managed, with the people I've helped, is that they run parallel to each other. So to be a good leader, you need to know when to hop onto the management track and when you can stay on the leader's track. And I think that the world is so busy now, like our jobs, our workload, there is too much to do the job with. There's probably the same level of peace that we maybe used to operate with. A lot of what I talk to and I teach the clients that I work with is that you need to stop. You need to pause, because if you just go, the chance of burnout's really, really high. And I think as a leader or a manager, depending on what hat you're wearing on the day or in the moment, anyone comes to you with a problem, there's an expectation that just like that, you've got the answer. But to hear, to let them feel heard, and for you to form an opinion and a really good course of action, a solution, you need to stop. And I think it's so difficult for leaders and managers these days to feel like they just have to give the answer. Someone comes in, here's the problem, okay, here's your solution, off you go. And sometimes next person in, same thing. But to stop as a leader and to go, right, give me 5 minutes and I'll come back to you. And, you know, whether that person stays in the room with you or whether you're like, do you know what, actually, this requires a bit more thought on my part. Come back to me at the end of the day and we'll have this conversation. What that does for people is incredible. What that does for your mind, your body, the chemical reaction as well. How many people have we met or managed where a problem presents itself and they are so heightened? I think, even as leaders, we can almost catch that off of them. We can get pulled into the moment, but to say, look, this requires a pause, a break, a walk, a cup of tea. Come back in a bit. I think that's what a lot of teams and especially managers and leaders are missing these days, is they feel they have to solve the problem there and then. So I think there's a lot of merit in being able to simplify everything, giving yourself time to breathe, and I think that way you don't have the repeat issues. So leading by example, isn't it?
Amazing. And even that in itself, with working with someone like you, I think is super important, because it's like when you've kind of performed, I'm not saying people are in performative roles, but when we're managing, and it's always been that way, it's kind of like that's how it's done, whether you feel like you want to do that or not. But I think that's why it's so important to connect with incredible leaders, again, in your field like you, that come in and almost give them that permission. Not saying that, we always need permission from someone, but sometimes we are so in the moment and so stuck in kind of loops and patterns that we often don't even see these blind spots. So I think actually, even in you saying that and someone hearing that, they're like, oh, I didn't actually think I could actually do that, because 10-minute meeting or whatever. Oh, actually, I can give myself permission to that. I can reschedule. I can. And I think often, we particularly when it's very structured sometimes and beyond us, I think sometimes we feel like we are stuck in a certain way. But actually taking that moment, as you so beautifully articulated, and actually making sure you're full first before you can pour into someone else, actually could create so much greater result. Okay, it might mean you have to do it twice or whatever, but actually there's a real I believe there's so much greatness in a pause, so much greatness.
Yeah.
And I definitely was not someone that paused. I was go, 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 go. So yeah, really, really thank you so much for highlighting that. I think that's really super important. And I'm just thinking about when you said like a manager and a leader. And again, you know, these are all whatever people feel they are to be. But I always see like a manager again, almost in that role, that not always, but that performative role of like doing it the way that they feel it has to be done. Whereas I feel like often a leader, regardless of the title, is how others perceive you. Because you can say I'm a leader, you can say I'm a manager, that doesn't mean you're going to get the respect. You're going to get the outcome that you want. Because if people you know, don't believe in what you're saying and the alignment of your actions, there's incoherence. So I think often how you lead, whatever it is you're leading in your life, is often at the discretion of the people following.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we talk about leaders, we automatically, like you say, assume that they hold a title. So I am team leader, I am team manager, whatever it might be. But actually, and I'm sure people listening to this can relate, that if they look back to teams they've been part of, every team's made up of such an eclectic mix of people, but there will be characters who, known to them, unknown to them, will be a natural leader, where their peers, you know, they get a situation, they get a brief, and their peers look to the left to whoever that is and go, what do you think?
Yes.
You know, their words carry so much authority, but that's built on trust, that's built on rapport, that's, you know, it's what they display. There's been so many people I've worked with, teams I've worked with, where you get them all around the table and really quickly you can see who are the empathetic leaders within a team, but they are all at peer status.
Yeah. I think that's super powerful, and and that's why, like, I think the bigger message of this, beyond the labels, is, you know, actually, if you take a moment, and everyone knows this in dynamics, and really, really feel into that, it's actually such an honor to be perceived that way, because often most leaders or you know, whatever we want to call them, I believe are always in the making way before the label. And I think again there's that sometimes, like, people almost hide their capacity or don't show it as much because of they're not getting the label or the pay. But there's real, like, I find there's real transformation in just being the way you're being for the good of what you want to give, and often you will become that as a result of your actions. Don't wait for the moment. Sorry, did that make sense? But like, don't wait for the moment to really show who you are at your core and your capacity, because often, you know, we are what we are before we're deemed to be it, I think.
Before you have that label, that title.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Richard Branson, he has a wonderful quote, and it's around how he employs. I don't know if you've heard it, but he says that what I want to employ for character, and then I will train for qualification.
Yes.
And I think what a phenomenal. First of all, you look at the success of all of his companies, and you think, well, if that's one of your key criteria for employing, there's got to be some sort of mileage in that as a saying. Yeah, and I've definitely used that myself over the years.
Absolutely. And yeah, because, you know, I know this to reflect on this now, after being someone who was in very much corporate settings and being like, I'm not doing that, I'm not, and it's like, does that mean I never had the capacity to? No, but I would have the private conversations. I wouldn't speak out in the meetings, etc., etc., etc. But equally, I feel like you feel that fuel and that passion for more. Trust the process, and just believe that. Like I don't know. I'm just a firm believer in what we put out, we receive back. So it's always going to come back to you. So I think yeah, I don't know. I just felt like that was really important, something to mention. So with that in mind, how I'm just thinking about, say, the scenario we spoke about earlier of someone almost having like a certain schedule and almost not even created on their own account, like it was something maybe given to them. How do you, like, because it's a huge thing, I think, being able to say and do, of like take a pause or take a moment, or you need time to reflect or something. Like, how do you get them to that point? And I know it's probably not a quick conversation. It's a lot of I don't know, lots of mindset work, maybe.
Yeah, so when we work with companies, and yet some companies are incredibly open to the idea of change, others not so much. Like, change is a very scary thing, especially when there's budgets and targets and all of that attached.
That's what I'm thinking about.
But if you were to look at, so I mean, my dad, when he had one of his early cars before it became digitized, on the speedometer there was 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 30, all the way up to, I don't think it was a very fast car, 100 miles an hour, for example. And on the inside of it was a depreciating number. And it was about how long, if you did 30 miles an hour, it's how long it took you, or in minutes it would do to do that time. And what was really interesting was that at 30 miles an hour, if you kept that speed versus 40 miles an hour, you'd save 12 minutes, something like that. I can't quite remember exactly what it was. Work your way up to 70 and 80 miles an hour, the difference between the two numbers, it was 2 or 3 minutes.
Wow.
So that's always really resonated with me, that sometimes to work slower or at a steady pace, actually you gain the most time, or you gain the most quality. But to work at 100 miles an hour, like a lot of people are expected to, or put that label on themselves, I must get this done by today. Actually, what you're doing is you're either, you're devaluing, to put it simply. So to go into a company and say, look, you have this project that needs doing, and I think you've got your timeline, you've got your frameworks, and that's fine, but a suggestion and a proven framework to add to this project is for everything that they do, when they get to the end of a big chunk of something, give them review time. And they can review how they want. Don't manage that. Whether they want to review and come to you, share ideas, whether their review process is getting a cup of tea and going and standing out in the sunshine for 10 minutes. Nobody is the same. Everyone will have their own strategy for review, for reset, and just to let the dust settle. Because if you're operating with the dust up in the air the whole time, if you're operating in your stretch zone or your panic zone, you're not giving yourself the best chance, but also you're doing a disservice to a client, a manager, your team. So whatever that looks like, and when you explain it, there's a whole plethora of ways of explaining that as a method, as a framework. But if you explain it in the right way, the amount of managers, the people who have paid us to come and work with them, there's that light bulb moment. They go, of course. Like, and guarantee that when they say of course, what they've done is they've cast their mind back to when they were a team member, when they were a team leader, and God, wouldn't have that been the best if I was afforded that opportunity, if I was afforded that pause, and how more effective I would have worked, how much more job satisfaction I would have had. I might have stayed in that job for 5 more years if that one framework was in place.
Absolutely.
And we see it in education. So
That was exactly what I was thinking about. Being I'm a former teacher.
yeah,
Not
same.
every little mind in that classroom is, you see one doodling. That child, you don't know the capacity that child's absorbed all that information more than the one sat there looking the best,
Mm.
And so I really love that, because what really screamed out to me in what you just shared was trust. And
Mm.
if that person is abusing that trust or whatever, and they are just, that's on them. That's on them. And then they've essentially whatever their own time. But trust them. If someone needs to be out in nature, if someone needs to be whatever it is, talking to someone, just trust in the capacity of the people you've already employed. You employed them for a reason, because you
Yeah.
saw something in them.
And when we talk about education, we cast, gosh, I don't know how long ago you were at school, but for me it feels like a lifetime ago. But I remember getting to school, and there was a decompression period. Right, you've got 15 minutes play, then we'll start the learning. And then it wasn't then to lunch at the end of the day. It was start of the day after decompression for getting into school. There was a break in the middle, there was a healthy lunch break, and then the afternoon was always slightly shorter than the morning. And education hasn't changed much over the years. There's a wonderful video on YouTube of a gentleman in a courtroom, and he says, this was a car back in the 30s, this is a car now, big change. This was something else back in the 30s, this is it now, big change. And then he flips to a picture of a classroom. He says, this was what it was then, this is what it is now. And it hasn't evolved, but we've evolved. And so there's a lot of things that I think education could be a lot better at, and
Absolutely.
the structure and the format.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, I'll see you in a couple of weeks for that one. But one of the things that I really liked when I was in school was that we were afforded a decompression time at the start of the day, a decompression time mid-morning, a really solid decompression time over lunch.
Yes.
Well, put that framework into a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
How many of us work through our lunch breaks? How many of us, only steal 30 seconds? Or how many people have just eaten their lunch at a computer because they've got a deadline? So why are we affording people who are learning, kids who are learning, that opportunity to perform, but we're not allowing our team that opportunity?
Yes, I agree.
And we say about giving people like the permission to do that. Well, a lot of people don't. Whereas when I had a big team of people in various jobs, you could walk into a room, you could see that they were working, but they were very ineffective. And you go, like, just drop what you're doing, go take a 15-minute walk. And they're like, well, I need to get it done by today. I was like, I still think you will, but I think the quality will be better and you'll be happier.
Absolutely.
So I order you to go and take a break. This is a non-negotiable. Go and have a rest. Go and enjoy the sunshine. And I think that definitely contributed to seeing a lower staff turnover. Because
and that's it essentially, isn't it? It's like, we only know what we know, and we can only do what we can do. But equally, if we're not still receiving the result that we are expecting, maybe, just maybe, we need incredible, you to come in and to give some support, to see the blind spots, to try a new way, because we can only, like what I say, if it's the same leaders in the room or whoever having the same discussions, thinking the same things, essentially we can often widen our mind with learning something new, but generally we can only express what we know. They can only say what they know. So if it's just the same voices and same thoughts and feelings and emotions or whatever, you're kind of going to keep producing the same results. So I think it's invaluable. I think it's invaluable to even when it feels like, you know, like for that person who's like, no, I can't, I don't have time. But that in a sense is a process for that person, and it's understandable. If that person just went, okay, yeah, straight away, that would be more concerning. Whereas, you know, they've been stuck in that certain way for however long, and it's like what you so beautifully highlighted, that could be the key difference between sustaining that team and having movement very quickly.
I think when we've spoken a lot about teams, individuals, peers, but how many people have ended up in a management role, a leadership role? Whether that's been promoted internally, or whether that's, you know, you've come from one job into another, but the same sector. So there's, to a degree, the same expectation. And I think maybe more so with having a promotion within the company, you typically find, and this is what we find a lot, is that people have had internal promotions. They've gone from being a really high performing person in a team, and that someone's gone, Joe, what, that person would be excellent for that management role. They've moved them up and they've gone, congratulations, well done, you're now a manager. And then that person has exited stage left and just left that person in that role and gone, I'm sure they'll be fine. And that person's gone, well, I've received no training. Like, yes, I'm good with people, but I'm now in a completely different arena. And for whatever reason, I don't know how we've ended up in this environment, but the ability to feel like you can ask for support when you hit a management role, whether that's middle management, upper management, you know, I'll have some very honest conversations with people who've been in a role for a long time, or people who are new to a management role, and most of them say the same thing. I'll ask the right question and they'll say, thank goodness you've asked me that, because let's be honest, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's I find that such a privilege, that we can be in a position where we can go into a company, we can work with individuals, and they feel safe with us to go, please help, please. And that's, you know, that's what managers above them should be doing.
Absolutely.
But that's not their fault, because everything filters down from the top. Everyone's got their workload.
And even when I just think of, you know, if we think wider than this as well, but like you know, the things we do, the jobs, the roles, whatever, is a huge proportion of our life. And equally, that is going to spill out into other areas of our lives. So not only, like, I'm just thinking, because I know you're so big on well-being, so even with you sharing that, who's that person really going to speak to? Probably his wife or her husband, that's going to give them advice that's not even in that situation, because there's too, I don't want to use the word scared, but let's just use that for now, they can't say it to those people, because, you know, now they've been, you know, they don't want them to think that they can't be in that position, and then they don't want to say to the person that's given it to them, because then they don't want them to think they're not good enough for it. So it all, I don't care what anyone says, and people can say, oh, I do my job and then I go home, but it always spills into our home life, and well-being is essential in all aspects of our life, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I've seen that sort of separates what we do from what other people do, is that companies, especially people who are paying the bill, want us to come in and they want better performance, and that's fine. We all want better performance. That's how we're going to stay cost viable. Companies aren't going to fold. You know, it goes towards helping the economy. It's not an unreasonable thing to expect from someone who's bringing us in. But a lot of people are then very surprised when you sit down and you do start asking not super personal questions, but questions that link into home life, that bring it all together, because we spend so many of our years working. So like you say, when we get home, it's very difficult to take that 90% of our day, park it, whatever's happened, and then give to that 10% of the day. You know, and I think, you know, I come home from work and I open the door, my little girl comes to me, and sometimes, you know, previously I've had some horrific days, weeks, months, and how much of that have I then passed on? And like, kids are so intuitive.
Absolutely.
Like, they know. I remember coming in. I mean, my little girl's about to turn 5, and I remember coming in one day absolutely shattered. It hadn't have been the worst day, but it was a long day.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep on the sofa, and I woke up and I had a blanket, my glasses were off, and she'd done that. I hadn't said anything, but like, so it does. And that was actually a really lovely situation where I was very proud of her, and very proud dad moment. But how much of it, knowing or unknowingly, do we then pass on to our partners, our kids, our friends? And that's something we teach as well when we're doing workshops. It's how do we decompress? How do we process? What points have you got where you can just switch off? So for me, it's in the car. It's the journey back. Whether it's listening to nothing, listening to a bit of music. But I also have a cut-off point. So I go through a tunnel on the way home, and it's about 15-20 minutes from my house. So I think, right, by the time I get to the tunnel, my processing, my emotions from the day, we're gonna park it. So when I come out of the tunnel, I'm back in partner mode, I'm back in dad mode, and then you can be more present. And it's not an easy thing to get to. It's taken a long time to be able to develop that personal framework, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I get home and I'm still carrying it, and that's okay. But to have 2 or 3 different frameworks that you can do, where you can go, right, my life isn't my job. My life is my life, and we only get a finite amount of time on this planet, and we can't add more time to our life, but we can add more life to our time. So if we've got those frameworks in place that allow us to be more present and see the good in what we're doing, whether it's at work or family or friends, then brilliant. And that's one of the big areas within our wellbeing workshops that we try and really focus in and drill down on with our clients.
Amazing. I'm so happy that we've discussed all different angles and perspectives, and it's been really a pleasure connecting with you. And I love the name of your company. I think you are 100% going to succeed above and beyond, and I know there's so many people that will be listening to this that will be truly inspired by what you've shared today. And I'm really thankful for you saying yes to the Zest to Zen podcast and coming on and sharing. And I'll put all your details in the description so people can reach out to you. And may you just continue to just really help, support, and change and uplift not only the success of the companies and organizations that you go into, but the well-being of the people, which is at the heart center, I believe, of everything. Because then we're better mothers, we're better daughters, we're better whatever, friends. So really, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
That's the magic. That's Zest to Zen.